Hello, everyone. I'm Lawrence Singleton, Dean of the Lubin School of Business. I'd like to welcome you to the Dean's Roundtable. Today, I'm really pleased to welcome Ms. Ramona Hood, who's the President and CEO of FedEx Custom Critical. FedEx Custom Critical is a leading North American transportation provider located in Richfield, Ohio. The company provides multiple transportation capabilities to expedite ground, temperature control shipments, and industry-specific solutions. She brings more than 3 decades of FedEx experience to her role. She began her career with the organization in 1991 in an entry-level position and worked her way up to hold various executive leadership positions at FedEx Custom Critical and FedEx Supply Chain. She's been recognized for her excellence in thought leadership, responsibility, and passion-driven results. A few specific recognitions include Crane's Cleveland 2022 Power 150 list, Business Insider's Powerful Women Leading Top Logistics Companies in 2021, and service on the Brinker International Board of Directors, noting her deep experience in sales, operations, supply chain, marketing, and talent management. Most recently, she was appointed to the Knight Foundation Board of Trustees due to the impact she has made on the Akron, Ohio area community as a business leader. Ms. Hood earned a Bachelor of Arts in Business Management from Walsh University and an Executive MBA degree from Case Western Reserve, Weatherhood School of Management in Cleveland. Please welcome Ramona Hood to the Dean's Roundtable. Welcome, Ms. Hood. I'd like to begin by asking you to tell a little bit about your story beyond the bio that I just described for people.
Sure, absolutely. I'd like to go a little bit deeper into FedEx Custom Critical, what we do. I think the FedEx brand is pretty iconic. But specifically FedEx Custom Critical, we're a B2B organization where we really transport freight, and we serve a couple different sectors: healthcare, the government, high and large manufacturing, commodities, and technology, as well as luxury goods. So a couple examples of what we do and how we do it is we provide exclusive use. So we pick up from point A and take it directly to point B. That allows us to minimize any commingling that would happen. It doesn't happen with our vehicles. We also have a quality systems that allow us to transport bio and pharma products. One of the things that you may have even noticed one of our trucks on would have been December of 2020. At the end of that year, we were the organization that was responsible for transporting the COVID vaccine. Because of the criteria of the temperature it needed to be kept at, we were able to assure that. So I'm delighted to be here this afternoon with all of you. There's a special connection to the Pace University. I have a daughter who is also attending the university. And so it's my pleasure to spend a little time with you and share about my background. My bio certainly talked about 30 years plus with the organization. And I always like to start off saying I started when I was 5 years old, so that you're not trying to calculate exactly how old I am. But I'd like to kind of walk you through my career a little bit, and I hope some of the information I share really resonates with you as you're thinking about your career and the intentionality that you'll want to have with it. So I started with the organization in an entry-level position back in the 90s. And for me, it was not a time that I was taking a job, thinking of it from a career perspective. It was really a job that met some needs for me as far as what the hours were and some of the flexibility it provided for me as someone who was a new mom. And so I took the job and very quickly realized that the organization itself was almost a city in itself when I thought about the different opportunities in a host of functional areas, a safety and compliance area, legal, sales and marketing, operation, customer service. And so early on, I realized that if there was something that I was really intrigued in doing, I probably could find work like that in this organization. And so I became very interested and the learning of the organization. And with that, I spent several years in the safety and compliance department. And in that space, it was really about internal processes to ensure that the fleet was safe when they were over the road. And then ensuring that we were following Department of Transportation regulations as well as federal regulations. With that, I also realized that I had a passion for helping others with their job and coaching and developing them. And with that, I met what was my first mentor, someone that was outside of family and friends, who had some exposure to my work and really wanted to get a good understanding of what I wanted to do. And so at that time, I was able to share really what I thought my passion was and my purpose. And it was really around getting into leadership. And like most mentors, that person gave me some good information really around how to think about looking at other opportunities. And there were two pieces of advice that they gave me. The first was that I should really think about moving to a different functional area because a first-time leader, it's pretty difficult to be the friend on Friday and the boss on Monday. The second piece of advice that they provided me was depending on how ambitious I was with my career, at some point I really should think about getting P&L responsibility. And so owning and having the responsibility for the financials of a piece of the organization or a department. And with that advice, I really took it to heart. And at that point, really started to be intentional with my career. And when I think about the intentionality of it, there's three things that I'd like to share with all of you. One is really putting thought into the work that excites you. You're always going to have work that you don't like to do. But when the majority of the work is things that excite you when you get out of the bed, it will overshadow any of the items or tasks that you're not that thrilled or interested in doing. And the ability to articulate that will not only help you, but it also helps individuals that can help you when you're thinking about your career. And that's the second piece of my advice around being intentional with a career. And that's thinking about yourself as a board. You have a reputation with the work that you do. And a board of directors is a group of people that will help you and have your best interests. And I like to talk about a board of directors with three different roles, and I'll explain those as well. One is a coach. And it's what you would expect. This is someone who's going to tell you the things that you do really well, and they're going to tell you the things that you need to practice and get better at. And having someone who can provide you that guidance in your career is very helpful. The second role is a mentor, and that's someone who's been where you're at, who understands what you're going through, and they can provide you really valuable practical experience to what's going on and what you may think about as you navigate your career. They're also a safe space to go and talk to if there's something you want to vent about, or if there's something that you know didn't go as well as you wanted. That mentor is the person who you can be very transparent with, and they're going to give you guidance and thoughts around it. And then the third role that is important would be a sponsorship. And I think this is really important, and I will stress for women and also people of color that sponsors are more challenging to get because this is someone who is in a position of power or authority, and they are able to influence things when you're not in the room. And so a sponsor is someone that's in your organization that you're working in, but they may be in a meeting and they're talking about a high profile project, and there's discussion about who should be put on that project. The sponsor is the one who would go, you know, I think Ramona would be really good for this opportunity. We'd be able to see her in some different areas that would give her great visibility, and we can really see what type of results she could get. those are the type of things a sponsor will do for you. They're going to basically co-sign for you in places that you're not in the room at the time. And so that board of directors is really important. And so it's important that you build relationships and foster relationships that allow you to get the insights from those three different groups. And then the third piece of advice that I'll share with you that I think was part of my career was also getting comfortable with the uncomfortable. And so that means getting out of a space that maybe you're compliant in, or you know you're really good at it and there's an opportunity to do something that you've never done before. The idea of getting comfortable with the uncomfortable really becomes a growth mindset. It means you are continuously learning and growing yourself, your experiences, your exposures to really be the best of yourself. So those are the three things that I kind of walked through in my career and still do. And so when I got that advice for what became a mentor, I took it and I moved to the operational area. And so the first leadership opportunity that I received was in a 24/7 call center operation area. And with that, being someone who got comfortable with the uncomfortable, I intentionally wanted to work all of the different shifts, understand the challenges and what took place on all of them to get a better system thought around how the business operates 24/7 and connect some of those things together. And so I did that as a leader. And spent a great deal of time in the operations. I confess to being an ops girl because it really connected with me operationally, thinking about the entire ecosystem and how things flow in and flow out. But from that, I also realized that I was interested in continuing to move up in the organization. And so to do that, I really took time to foster my board of directors and had coaches and mentors. And it was several years beyond that that I realized that I was missing an element in my board of directors, and that it was a sponsor. And the way I realized it is I continued to work in different areas. So now I had operations experience, I had sales experience, and I had great results. But FedEx is a large enterprise. And when I thought about opportunities, I knew opportunities could come outside of the operating company I was a part of. And I was in a meeting with an executive from another operating company. And we had a great conversation in the meeting, and I followed up with them about my career and my interests. And they said to me, you know, I don't think many people know you outside of FedEx Custom Critical. I think I can help you in that space. I want you to participate in some of our DEI conferences that we have across the U.S. with our team members. You'll get exposure to the rest of our leadership team. And so that was someone who was really advocating for me, who had the power to do it. And that relationship matured in a way that he then inserted me into conversations around talent management and how my experience can transfer into other operating companies. And so with that, as my career continued to move up in both responsibility, the scope of work that I did, but also in positions that I was taking, I had a great opportunity to lead another operating company that was a startup. And so it allowed me to do both sales and operations and build a structure around growth and sustainability. And that particular person really became both a sponsor for me as well as a mentor. And then when I moved into my first officer role, the individual was someone who connected with me before the interview on any practice that I wanted to do as well. And so that gives you a sense of the role that a sponsor can play in positioning things for you. And so I continued my career in officer positions, working across different operating companies. And then in January, I should say 2019, the president and CEO of FedEx Custom Critical made a decision that they were going to retire. And so I was asked to be the president and CEO of the organization in January of 2020. And I say, be careful what you ask for, because you just might get it. So it was a goal of mine to reach that level. And it had a lot of significance with it as well. I mentioned my daughter, who currently attends PACE, and I also have an older daughter. And as we were going through this process, I remember very distinctly the day that I signed my offer letter to be the president and CEO. And I called my daughters, and we were on a conference call together. I was still in the office that evening. And I said to them, hey, I want you guys to know it's official. I signed the paperwork. I'll be the next president and CEO. And my older daughter on the call said, Mom, did you just break the glass ceiling? And it was pretty emotional for me because it would also be the first time that there was an African-American woman leading any FedEx company in our, at that time, 48-year history. And so it also showed to me that my girls were watching along the way of this journey to get to the role of president and CEO. And none of us have to relive 2020, but I will share with you, it was probably the most challenging time of my career. One, being in the role of president and CEO, but we all had to navigate through a global pandemic. And what that pandemic showed me as a person, it was a couple things that came from that, as well as the racial injustice that was happening in the country around that time. But the learnings for me were a couple things. One was the best leader is an authentic leader. And so through those times of crises, those times of uncertainty, I was pretty raw and authentic with the organization around, I knew the work that we needed to do, and I knew how important and impactful it would be to the society. And what I needed was for our team to really rally around that. But I did not try to forecast the macro conditions of the economy and the impact that it would have to us personally as well as professionally. And with the team, I also recognized how the pandemic hit close because of potentially individuals passing away that were family or friends. Also, the financial impact it could have to a family if they had people working in industries where they were shut down and weren't considered essential workers. Also understanding all of the emotions that went on with everyone as we saw the vivid murder of George Floyd on that video as well. And so as a leader, I was pretty authentic through all of those situations, sharing my thoughts and my views, and also asking the organization to walk with me and lead in a way that would make all of us very proud of not only who we are, but the work that we did as well. And so from 2020, really the focus was, again, we were an active participant in moving active ingredients for the COVID vaccine. And then we were able to really book in the year with being able to disseminate the vaccine as well. And so as we navigate out of the pandemic, and I continue to lead the organization and really focus on getting our growth and volume and our business opportunities in a place that differentiates us for others. A couple other things that I continue to focus on, and I think it stays with the intentional things that you do for your career and for yourself to continue to grow. And so in my bio, there were a couple things that were talked about as far as boards that I serve. And I serve on boards typically because it is meaningful for me, especially in the nonprofit side of things. So the Knight Foundation is a foundation with $2.3 billion under assets that are given to local cities that were touched by the Knight brothers who were in journalism. And their focus is around journalism, the arts, and DEI. And to be a trustee on that foundation, I feel very fortunate that I get to be a part of an organization that is giving back to several communities in the U.S. The corporate board that I sit on, Brinker International, it's casual dining, it's your Chili's and Maggiano's. And that board really provides me an opportunity, one, to contribute to their strategy, but also it provides me learnings because I'm one of 7 that sit on this board. And the other 6 have a diverse work experience and C-suite experience in different industries. And I get to use the thought process of how we solve problems there and the input that everyone gives and leverage that in my own company. And so it's been really a two-way street of me giving thoughtful advice, but then also being able to receive some from them. And then most recently, I've joined the 4th District of the Federal Reserve Bank in January of this year. And so, again, this is an opportunity when you think about the central money system to be able to take practical experience and allow that to lay on top of all of the data research that we get from the Federal Reserve researchers to say, hey, this is what we're seeing. And I get to contribute in those conversations with, again, other directors of the Federal Reserve to help influence what they look at from a policy perspective and what their recommendations are around inflation and things of that nature. And so my goal is to continue with my career of having an impact. It's one of the reasons I enjoy having conversations like this. Not so much what I say, but really to get a sense from you guys, the questions that you have that I'm able to answer for you. And so I'm going to pause right there, Molly, and I think I am good with us going into a Q&A session.
Brianna, this is great. Thank you for great. Are having a great career and you've got a great story to tell. And we appreciate you sharing that. So I want to encourage all the students now to ask questions. Everyone on the call to ask questions. You can raise your hand like this. You can raise your hand using the Zoom raise your hand feature, but you can put it in the chat. And Molly's going to moderate the questions. While you're doing that, let me begin by asking one myself. So it's what I see now. It's not very common for folks to stay with the same organization for their entire careers. And I don't know how many of the students on the roundtable today have thought that far ahead, but were you ever tempted to leave? What did FedEx do to entice you to stay throughout your career?
Yeah, so definitely I would say there are a few companies and organizations where when you interview and you ask about the tenure, you're going to get very long tenured folks, but that would be the exception. That's typically not the norm. For me, there were probably 2 to 3 serious times that I looked at where I was at in my career and I thought where I wanted to go, those options would come outside of FedEx. And I think those are perfectly fine questions for everyone to ask themselves. And so for me, I always did an evaluation and I always wanted to be a person who is going towards something, not trying to get away from something. However, there are organizations and environments where you may feel like it's toxic and you do need to get away. For me, that was never the case. And so it was really about how can an opportunity enhance where I want to go and the things that I'm interested in doing. And so I was very thoughtful in doing those evaluations. Part of the evaluation was also just getting in the market. And so that meant sharing that I was interested in listening to opportunities, doing some interviews where I could really evaluate the organization and their culture, and then making decisions from there. So for me, the decision always came back to FedEx, but certainly I had a few times that I looked outside of the FedEx organization.
There's nothing wrong with anybody doing that in your view. Nothing wrong with that. See what's out there. Right?
Not at all.
Great.
Yeah, when I look at a resume, you know, if you would ask me the question 10, 15 years ago, a resume that showed someone moving every 3 to 5, it would raise my eyebrows and I would ask some questions in that interview. Today, seeing a resume where someone leaves every 3 to 5 is the norm.
Okay, next is Sophia.
You mentioned the craziness of 2020 and everything that went on. I'm curious to know, what did you learn about yourself as a leader that year that you think it would be helpful for our students to know?
Yeah, a couple things. Thanks for that question. So I think as a leader, I touched on a piece of it, and one was just authenticity into who I am, and a couple things that really came out during that time frame. One was the way in my style in leading, and I was very clear and concise in that. I was willing to share my opinion. The other piece of it was the level of calculated risk that I was comfortable with making. And you can imagine large companies tend to be bureaucratic with how you think about solving problems, and it takes a long time, and they're not very agile. And we find ourselves in those situations as well. So in a normal environment, the idea of working remotely, we'd have a steercom, we'd have all these work streams, we'd have a project plan, and it's something that would take, 6 to 9 months before we'd get to a decision, and then there'd be an implementation plan on top of that. In this situation, mid-early March, it was the state of Ohio shut down. And in that moment, I basically told the team, as we look at business continuity, do we have a scenario like this? The answer was no. Do we know what will happen if we tried to all work from home? The answer was, we don't know. And I said, okay, we're going to try it and see if we break our infrastructure, and then we'll fix it. And so we actually sent people home within 3 business days. And that was take a computer. I didn't care if they didn't have laptops. We were going to figure it all out once we were safely working from our homes. And so taking that level of calculated risk and empowering the team to really work through the mishaps with it and to be very agile in our approach really showed me, and it's something I took out of COVID as well, we can be faster at making decisions, and we can be a lot more agile and focus on pivots as we need to. And so I think that is a piece that actually went really well for us. The last thing I'll answer is there was an element of grace that happened in 2020 that it's probably not completely still here in 2024, but from a style approach, it was something that I try to keep a piece of that grace as I move forward as well, just in my personal style.
Okay, next is Julie.
Thank you so much. Hello, Ramona. A very great career progression, Jenny and story. Congratulations. I'm actually a MBA graduate student, a mature one, because I've got quite a varied work experience. I've been in the corporate environment for almost 20 years, and I was fortunate as well that I managed to progress in my career very young. I'm a lawyer by profession, and I've occupied quite a number of boards back in South Africa. I'm from South Africa. At a young age, I remember I used to be the youngest board member in different industries. at different times. And so one kind of achieved what you referred to as breaking the glass ceiling, very early in their careers. But what I want to find out listening to you, with your career journey is that, with women of color, when we break these glass ceilings, breaking a glass ceiling means that you get injured in the process. Those glasses that you shatter, they injure you emotionally, mentally, and nobody talks about it. And I just want to hear what your take would be that on, because having been here in America for a year now during, with my MBA program, I've also observed closely that there are also women of color that are really having broken the glass ceilings. They experience the hardship, different challenges. And I can think of, for instance, Claudine Gray at Harvard, being one of the women. So I just want to hear what your take on that would be.
Yeah, so certainly, I can talk about it before my current position, and then also some things that you encounter after moving to the C-suite as well. And so when I think about, one, the industry I'm in, so the logistic and transportation industry in general, and I'll talk a little bit from being a woman of color and also gender, because both apply. It's not an industry that has a lot of women in it, especially in leadership roles. And so prior to my current role, one of the things that I saw in the industry was elements of bias. To be in middle management and senior management, you put in a lot of time into the job, after hours, the entertainment, the travel, all of those things. And there was a bias because a lot of times I would be the only woman around what time I needed to go back to be with my family. And being a divorced mom, it was compounded that there was an assumption there wasn't anyone to help and support with the kids. And so I really had to be very thoughtful and one, making sure that I was in the right places and building relationships, which is very important and necessary. But I also did my career as a decision of three. And so with that, there were sacrifices that happened. My kids will tell you, the thing that I did really good was the first and the last event that they wanted me to be there, I was there. The things in between, those were things we had to negotiate because it was a matter of how it impacted my schedule and the things that I was trying to achieve. And so I would really sit with my kids and talk about the importance of communication. Like, you have to tell me what's really important to you because I don't want to guess at it. And I remember my younger daughter, the one that's now in college, when she was in elementary, having that conversation, she said, I want you to be like every other mother. I just want you to pick me up after school every day. And I couldn't. But what I did tell her is, and what our compromise was, one day a month, I was going to pick her up. And that meant she could stay and play with her friends on the playground because their moms were stay-at-home moms, and that's what they did often. And so I remember my family really being concerned because I had other people that would pick her up. They were like, are you really going to be able to do this? She's been talking about it for like 2 weeks now. And I'm like, it's okay. I will be there and I'll be able to do it. But I would have never known that was really important to her without her expressing it in the way a 6 and a 7-year-old can. And so that was both from a family perspective as well from a work environment perspective. I had kind of eyes open. It wasn't a rose-colored environment for me around the time commitments I would have to make and some of those trade-offs that would happen as well. When I moved into my role, probably, and I honestly don't know because of it being 2020, how much of it just got accelerated or more transparent or even, bolder because of the time that we were living as well. We had a lot of political divisiveness that was going on during that time as well. But what I really started to see was some of the microaggressions that can take place. One of the studies that I read a lot about is a McKinsey study. They're Lean In. Jointly, they'll do a survey. And the last one that they did, and I'd be happy to share it with you guys as well, it really talked about one of the problems we have today with the pipeline into the C-suite is the middle management positions. And the biggest challenge is it's with African-American women. And it is their ability to not be in environments that provide inclusiveness. And so it talks about some of the challenges that take place because of microaggressions and things of that nature. And so when you think about an organization that is providing the best product or service, it's going to be an organization that truly knows their targeted audience, and they have a diversity in thought and experience in helping and shaping what the business and a strategy looks like. And so I think the article gives some really good information about the challenges today that we have, along with potentially some solutions that we can do as far as corporate America is concerned. And Larry, I'd be glad to send that to you and you can share it with anyone.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that, Ramona. Yes, yes, absolutely. Well, please don't be shy. Take advantage of Ms. Hood's being here with us. Let me ask another question. There's something you just said. You're a parent. You've got 2 daughters. You're now a single parent. You've got a lot on your plate. And as you rose up the ladder, it must be really tough to juggle everything. How important is time management to you, and how did you obtain those important skills?
Yeah, well, I love the way you phrase the question. A lot of time, especially with women, the way the question is posed is life balance. And I don't believe in life balance because that means things are equal. But I do believe it's important to have prioritizations and you shift the work to those prioritizations. From a time management perspective, I can tell you my family, my executive assistants, they probably say I'm overboard with the way I manage my time and I prioritize things. But for me, it's all about intentionality because I believe you do the things that are important to you. And for me, I have to write those down. And so I have, things that I believe are important for personal and professional relationships. I call those my synergies. I have things that are important for my self-care around health and things of that nature. I have things from a financial standpoint around creating generational wealth. And I have these categories. It's 5 categories. And what I do is my calendar is color-coded to those things as tasks come about. And my calendar is not just appointments, but anything that needs to be done has to go on my calendar because I need to see how I'm utilizing the hours and time that I have. And with all of that effort and work on it, there are weeks that are really good and there are weeks that are really not. And so I like to do a retrospective view and look and go, God, my energy was really drained this particular week. What happened? And look at where my priority of times were at and see if there are things that I need to shift. And there are certain times where I look and go, you know what? I can't do more than 2 evenings out in the community. Or from a speaking engagement perspective, I can tell you February and March, I have to put guidelines on how many events I'll do because of either Black History Month or International Women's Month. And so I'm just very aware of what I enjoy doing, what I have to do, and the things I want to do. And to manage those, I think, are really important. And I would encourage anyone, if you think about your schedule and time management, as well as attention to detail. Those things make a really big difference in the way that you spend your time.
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah. For students who would like to have a career like yours, are there any particular skills or any particular knowledge that you would recommend that they get while they're in college, take advantage of? For example, I know FedEx uses a lot of data. You have to use a lot of data. Is analytics important to you? We offer a lot of analytics classes and programs here. Anything that you would recommend that they study while they're here and take advantage of while they're here in college?
Yeah, so I would say I think it's important to just have an aptitude to learning. I think it's important to understand there is the learning, and then there is the experience that comes with time of dealing with issues or problems. When I'm thinking about positions that we need to fill, what's important to me is the person that has the critical thought to do something with the information. Data can be very interesting, but it's not meaningful if you don't know what to do with it. And so it's important to me that individuals have a critical thought, that they use frameworks to support how they solve decisions and problems, to be able to really take a deep perspective around the situation. And a lot of times that requires collaboration. So if I look to solve a problem and I do it independently by myself, it's real easy for me to go down a rabbit hole and come with one solution and disregard alternative solutions as well. It's something different when I work with my executive team to solve the problem and everyone comes with their own scenario. And again, the value of different thought is we all didn't lean into the same solution. We have different solutions. And when you start to see that, you now can go, well, let me understand the pros and cons of that. What could be, some of the consequences if that was the direction we would go, and really go through scenario modeling across a couple different options. And so individuals who are comfortable with that level of collaboration, who are taking thoughts and ideas and opinions from others before they come with their solution, that becomes pretty meaningful. And those are the qualities and characteristics that I typically am looking for with individuals in our organization.
Well, I've got one more question for you, and then I want other people to jump in here and take advantage of you while you're here. You're obviously a very successful business executive. What is your typical day like? If you could,
So I start my day pretty early. So I start about 5:30, and I spend my first hour in self-care. So typically I work out, I read a Bible scripture, and I get ready, all without looking at my phone. I never check my emails or look at my phone within that first hour. After that hour, I spend 30 minutes on email, and that is just to filter what needs action and get rid of emails that require nothing to be done. After that, my schedule is pretty full with meetings. What I do is to avoid multitasking, I schedule when I check emails. So I typically do that 3 times throughout the business day, and then one time around 7:30 at night. That's the last time I look at it, is 7:30 at night. I also, on my calendar, schedule at the end of each day, organizing the next day, so that I have a good sense of the things that I want to get accomplished, and I have those things identified as well. Depending on the day of the week, today's Wednesday. Typically on Wednesdays, I don't do meetings. Typically my Wednesday is a day that I'm using to think through strategy, planning how board meetings will look, and things of that nature. I call it my creative day without interruption. And so I try to avoid meetings on Wednesday. Tuesday and Thursday, I allot those for late meetings. So if I'm interacting with folks on different time zones, it's not uncommon on a Tuesday or Thursday that I'm either working until 7 or 8 at night, or attending an event that could be an evening event as well. I do try to, if I'm not traveling, not do that more than 2 days a week. And then, like I said, the rest of the day is really built with the meetings that I have. I don't need to meet. I'm pretty intentional with meetings. There has to be an objective for the meeting. I believe in pre-reads. I don't want someone to walk me through slides or read anything to me, or the first time I see it is in the meeting. And I also want to know what they want out of the meeting. Is it to inform me? Is it to escalate something to me? Or are they looking for me to solve something? And so I use those to kind of gauge what the meeting is for. And then I have meetings that I like to connect with people in the organization. And I call those my skip meetings. So I kind of skip over my team and talk directly to their team in one-on-one conversations. And I also do a monthly Ramona Roundtable where my assistant will get 10 to a dozen team members randomly. And it's my opportunity to get a pulse from them, what excites them, what's making them nervous. If they were sitting in my shoes, what are the things they'd want to hear more about? What are the things that they do differently? And I set that up probably monthly. They probably happen more every other month as travel and things come into play for my schedule.
Very organized. I'm sure you must be. That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
I had a question that some of our students submitted when they registered. What qualities do you see in the best people at your company?
I think the best qualities are the folks that, one, they're always interested in learning. Two, they're not focused on getting credit for the work. And so they're very generous in how they take the recognition that they may get, or they share that recognition with others. Individuals that are willing to fail. We have a culture and an environment where we want innovation. And with that type of environment, you should expect some levels of failure. If you're not failing, you're probably not trying enough or taking enough risk. And so having individuals who are comfortable in that space are a few of the things that are important to us.
Thank you.
And there was a point, I thought John had his hand up. I didn't know if there was a question he had or not.
I can ask the question. John Guzman, or
I thought John Millett.
oh, you can go first.
All right, thanks. It was really about, like, for new hires, what kind of like experiences or like what they've learned, what the life experience, job experience, what do you like to see, what do you want to see, and just more along those lines.
Yeah, so when someone is joining the company in some of our entry-level positions, we're pretty broad from the experience level that they could have. It's everything from a recent college graduate. It may be someone who hasn't graduated from college and may not even be going to college right at that point. They may have had a career somewhere else and they're doing a transition. But what we look for is some of the characteristics that I was sharing with Molly, from the standpoint of they're going to be a person who wants to learn. They're going to be comfortable working in team setting and environments, and they'll be comfortable with taking risks. And with that, you know, I mentioned the failure of risk, but there's also receiving the feedback. And so failure is only good if there's things that we learned from it. And so the person has to be okay with getting the feedback and going through kind of the postmortem of initiatives and projects to reflect on what worked well, what we would do differently, and that may include what they would do differently as well.